Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first order of business this evening is delegations. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak and address the board? Anyone from the public that would like to address the board this evening? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of our meeting minutes. Our first item is special meeting of April 3rd, 2003. Are there any comments or corrections?
I will admit that I have not had a chance to review any of those minutes, and I wouldn't mind deferring them to next month for approval, if everybody's in agreement.
All right, anybody have any problem with that?
That's fine.
Okay, so we will move them to next month. And Bill's not here either, so.
It would just be really appreciated if all the board members would just remember to take these copies with you to the next meeting, so we don't need to make copies of them again.
Absolutely.
We will include copies of tonight's. Okay, thanks.
Do we maybe we should make a motion second, and then that we're moving these minutes for approval for next month's regular meeting.
Do we need a motion?
No motion?
No need for a motion.
Okay.
So we're not going-
Okay.
Just table it until next meeting.
Just table. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Good point.
I'd like to propose that we move the Board of Education report next in our business for convenience. Could someone support me on that and make a motion to do so?
Also move.
Is there a second to change our agenda?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so our next report is going to be the Board of Education report.
Hi, everyone. Thank
Hello.
you for doing that. I appreciate it. Hi. I'm Candace Carlson from the East Lyme Board of Ed, and this is my daughter, Alexandra. She's going to help us tonight. And that's all yours, okay? You ready? All right. The East Lyme Board of Ed and the entire district have been very, very busy getting ready for the elementary school projects to begin, in addition to all the end-of-the-year activities.
The elementary school renovations will start immediately following the last day of school, which will be June 22nd. You may already have seen pods from storage and construction trailers located outside of the schools in preparation. Focus will be on abatement over the summer, construction, and renovation. Within the buildings, our administration and teachers are also getting ready to transition as well.
Redistricting also has been finalized as of our June 21st meeting and will go in effect starting for the 2019-2020 school year. The new boundary lines are online, and I believe that Jeff has them tonight if anybody would like to take a look at them.
We have a capital improvement plan and 10-year maintenance committee meeting coming up on June 20th.
And tonight, I'm very happy to be able to share with all of you our State of the District timeline. This timeline is a compilation of work and achievements that have occurred over the last 3 school years, along with planning and preparation for the upcoming 2018-2019 school year. We have been dedicated ongoing improvements across the East Lyme District, and a great deal of work has been put forth by our district's staff in collaboration with the Board of Ed and the town to achieve our goals. With that said, we would like to offer to come back at a later date and present this document and go through each of the 12 goals and initiatives. We also have a book if you'd like to take a look today, and it's going to be online. It's a great resource. Now, Alexander will be noting a few other things specific to each of our schools.
Thank you. Each of our elementary schools will be having their step-up days and end-of-the-year ceremonies. They will also have half-days the last week of school to provide teachers time to pack their classrooms in preparation for the renovations. The East Lyme Middle School will have their class night ceremony on June 21st at 7 p.m. And the East Lyme High School will have their graduation on June 22nd at 5:30 p.m. and you are all invited.
Yes, you are. Now, we also brought a copy of the Viking Saga just for you to review. Go ahead and run it up, and you can keep it.
Well, thank you.
And we'd like to suggest that you start utilizing Board Docs. That might help you with all of your paper. We just transitioned over to Board Docs. Everything is online, and it's been a very, very good resource.
Who's the vendor on that? Is that like Google Docs?
It's a specific, not really, no. Well, I guess you could say it is a bit like Google Docs, yeah, because it's a shared service where everybody can chime in, review all the minutes, the notes, and all the agenda items for the board are located in that document. So there's no more paper. So it's saving us an immense amount of paper. We're doing it for policy as well. So all of our policies we used to print out and review are all online now.
Right, which would be great. So I'm just wondering, do we have the same software
It's
ability here that you have at the school?
You
or-
should. It's all done through online.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just an online program that's utilized. Obviously, there's a fee and a cost associated with it, but we figured what we were gonna save in paper usage, it was worth the investment, and so far, we've used it, what, 2 or 3 meetings now.
It's been
It's been
fantastic.
good.
Right,
It
no, we
really, really
have,
has.
we definitely have a lot of paper.
Yeah.
That we could definitely review
Think
on.
we could send the information over?
Yeah.
Maybe,
That would be helpful, because if you have a site license, maybe we could piggyback on that if it wouldn't
Yeah.
cost anything additional. That would be
Potentially.
something we'd be interested
Yeah.
in.
If you wanna view it too, you could go to our website under Board of Education and under the public button, click on the public button under Board Docs at the bottom, and it'll take you right to all the information. You can see what meetings we've been through so far with it.
It's
Okay.
very convenient, very efficient. It's-
And this is online as well, correct?
It is online, yes.
So I have a question on that. Is it the expectation that the board members print off what they want to bring to the meeting, or is there
No.
some visual?
Nope, we bring our computers. You can, because that's a big transition for some people, utilizing the paper and then swapping over. That's been difficult for a couple, but with more use, they've been seeing the convenience of it. But you can, yes, there is an area where you can print it off.
So they bring their own laptops or PDFs, or tablets?
Yes.
Okay. Because I find that our work lends itself, for me anyway, quite often to having a hard copy in front of me. I mean, your work may be different, or maybe it's just me, but
No, I don't believe it's been any different. I think it's just something getting used to. I think that some people just are better at maybe having it in front of them. I know that was one of the challenges that Jamie had, but she's really learning to like to use the tool. It's really been resourceful.
Does the tool allow you to write on it for
Yes,
notes?
yes.
That would be the key.
And it is. That's a challenge for me, actually, because I want it a certain way, and I know that I can do it. I just have to figure out how to do it, and that's where we have a professional to help. But the minutes can go right over to the secretary in an immediate fashion. But it's right there, and it's my notes, so you wouldn't be shared with anybody else. You would have your own private, spot for notes.
For FOI purposes.
So we couldn't write on the document
Not on the
itself,
document
but it's
specific.
going
You-
into a
you have
separate
box-
file.
Yeah, you have
Yes.
a box that pops up just for you where you keep your notes.
Yeah, okay.
And actually, the first time that I used it was at the last meeting, and it takes a few minutes, but it's great. So it will help you. And that's it?
Okay.
any questions of the board?
No?
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for having
Thank
us.
you.
I did not bring a copy of the redistricting boundaries, just because I looked at it today. It's real hard to see on a small paper, but we have a very large map. If you're interested, I could bring it over to the town here, so if anybody wants to see the new boundary lines. We also have them online as well. All that information is online, but we are moving away from paper as well. But happy to bring those over.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions of the board, I will move back to well, why don't we just finish with our
Yeah.
reports, and then we'll move into new business. So our next item is going to be the first selectman's report.
Okay, sure. Nice to have the budget process finally behind us. Obviously, that's done. We're watching the books as we get closer to the end of our fiscal year and starting the next. Of course, physically, we are in the process, you'll see tonight, of getting ready to get our financing in order, including bonds and in appropriations, acquisitions, financing for the 3 police cars, the dump truck, and the 2 sidewalk plows, and we'll have those tonight. But those are all part of our budget and our capital. We talked ad nauseum on that. Of course, the park is being readied downtown. We're, I'd say, 65% there, 2/3 of the way there, with the structure in place. I think you can buy a brick up until this Friday, and then we have to kind of shut that off so we can make them so we can install them. But all the utilities are underground, and we'll see that come together. We're planning on a ribbon cutting on July 21st, which will be Celebrate East Lyme Day, and we'll do that in the morning before the chaos. So it's probably around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and it'll give us enough time to do that for an hour and then get everyone busy on Main Street, setting up and getting security underway there. We also, work is underway. You may have seen all the construction on between the Morton House, let's say, and down to Cheney Park. We're putting in the utilities for the bathrooms. Of course, it's a water line and a waste line that is going up from Cheney Park and putting those lines in. We got notice that trailer, that custom trailer, is going to be delayed a little bit. We'll get this trailer in, we'll get the infrastructure in. I don't see that it won't see much of the summer. But it is a project that is going to happen, and we're underway doing that. Also, by the way, kind of important, being finance, we did receive approval to utilize the STEEP grant money for the park, for our Main Street Park. That was all kind of, when we came in through the appropriation process, even to the town meeting, we were talking about, we might have some money over here, we might have some money here. Well, we did get confirmation from the Attorney General, and I think it was DECD to get, DEEP approved all that, so we can move some of that STEEP grant money to the construction of the park. We're trying to not utilize as much town tax money as possible.
How much was that, Mark?
The total grant is $500,000. We'll be putting the bathrooms in, we'll be putting the kayak ramp in, but there is money left over, and we have permission to use that for the park instead of giving it back to the state.
Nice.
Okay, that's what's going on in town.
Can I
Of
ask
course,
you
a
about the
farmer's
park?
market every Thursday. I'm sure I'll see you all down there, right? And the concerts start up right after Celebrate East Lyme on Friday nights up at the park. There's also theater going on up there this summer for the second time. There'll be music on the beaches on Wednesday nights, and a lot of other great things around town too.
A question on the tie-in at Cheney Park. So are we tying in a waste line as well as a supply line? So we're pumping waste uphill?
Yes, yeah. We do it all over town.
Right,
We
but-
grinder pumps, and
No, I'm-
that's how it
I'm
happens.
just thinking, I guess I
Yeah.
didn't realize that I thought this trailer was sort of and Joe, feel free to jump in, but I thought the trailer was like a plug and play, and it was like a temporary, I guess I just didn't realize that we were pumping.
No, the water
I knew
will
we were
flow.
getting supply down, but I wasn't sure about the waste
The
part.
water will flow. It's going to be regular plumbing. It's not a porta potty. Nothing. We're not going to be storing any.
Well, I didn't know if
thing
we'd
there,
pump it
yeah.
out. I knew it wasn't a
Not
permanent
pumped
storage.
out. So it will be a regular. It'll work like your toilet at home,
Mhm.
or the one at town hall here.
But they just carted away in the off-season,
Yeah,
so
we'll be able
everything
to-
would be,
We'll be able to take
Stuffed.
it apart, like,
Okay.
well, not like anything, but we'll be able to take it apart and roll it. In the off season, we did not buy it to be winterized. We're not putting the pipes in deeper than they need to be because we know we'll flush them out for the winter time. We'll winterize them. So we saved money there. We didn't go whatever it is 3 feet down. We're only going 1 foot down, or whatever the numbers are. But we're not going to be water will not be flowing, nor will waste in the winter months. We're also trying to strategize how we can get water. We have 4 town docks down there. We have a town dock with 4 boats, and they've asked to be part of our utility. They use a lot of water naturally, and right now they have to bring the water in by truck. The Black Hawk fishing crew, and there's 3 other boats there. So we're going to try to supply them water as well. So we increase the size of the pipe, so we'll have enough water flow to supply them as well. They talk about an ice machine. Fishing vessels use a lot of ice, so we're working through that.
Great. Questions of Mark, anyone? Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next report is Director of Finance.
In the green folders, I provided updated expenditure and revenue reports. At the time that we were publishing, there were just some entries that weren't made, so thus the draft reports. And so the budget summary is in your, was also in your green folders, and the revenues that are highlighted are the typical revenues that are highlighted with dollar amounts over $10,000. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then down below are the expenditures that were over $10,000. In looking at how I estimate we'll end the year, looking at what we've taken in through May in revenues and what I project through the month of June. We're at the end of May, the revenues were $68,040,369. The estimate for the month of June is a little over $1.7 million, so the total revenues would be $69.8 million. Now, if you look at the expenses, per the town report, the expenditures plus the encumbrances total $59.7 million, and there's an estimated remaining budget of $11.1 million. So for discussion purposes and coming up with an estimated calculation of operating results for the year, I'm saying we're going to spend all of it. However, from that, we need to subtract the Board of Education budget holds and the town budget holds, and then I included an additional remaining balance amount. So with that said, the expenditures would come to $69,864,000. So
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
$69,864,000. And the revenues at $69,814,000. So what that means is an estimated use of the fund balance. We said we were going to use $675,000, and I'm looking at us using about 50 of it.
50%.
No,
50,000.
50,000, right. That's provided that the estimates that I have discussed with you are what ends up happening for June. So it's better than I had previously projected. I was thinking we were going to use about 300, 350 in the fund balance. So I'm looking at it being more like 50.
Well, that's good news.
So where did the savings come
Yeah,
from?
Savings for,
So you're saying that the total expenditures that you're anticipating as of June 30th are going to be $69,864,000.
right.
So that is less than what we budgeted.
But that's because, if you remember, in order to, because we started off with a balanced budget, but the balanced budget, our revenue projections, in particular, on the state side, were greater than what the state actually provided to us during the year. So, because of that, in order to be proactive and not to look at a supplemental tax bill, the Board of Education implemented budget holds to make up, a portion of it, as did the town. And so that's what's making it so that our operating results are as I'm projecting them to
So
be.
am I hearing you correctly in that the budget holds from the Department of Education will not be lifted?
That's correct.
Okay, so those savings are locked in,
That's
so to
correct.
speak.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the other piece that is, part of this picture of the operating results is the fact that when the mill rate was set for this year, the Board of Finance took it and said, okay, we're going to put a little bit extra into the mill rate to help with any issues we might have with the state revenue projections. And so that's all a part of where I'm estimating we will be at the end of the year. With regards to the reports that I sent out, does anyone have any questions on the general fund?
Questions? Yeah.
So, the reports that came in our green folders this evening are dated about a week later than the reports that we received at home in the mail.
Yes.
And it appears to me that the expenses had increased in that 1 week period by $3 million.
Well, so what that was is, a Board of Education staff member actually goes in and books their activity, to our site, to our system. And they, unfortunately have, the individual that does that unfortunately, is out of work unexpectedly. And so it was just getting someone to have the time to actually do that. And that's primarily what it was, is Board of Ed expenses.
Okay. Are there accruals in that number, or do those remain to be booked?
In terms of,
Any expenses that we're liable for that have not been paid for yet
for May,
for this fiscal year through June 30th?
well, at that, we're still going on with the month of June.
Right, so there will be more accruals that get made? One of my
This is only a report through the end of May.
Right.
That we're discussing tonight, so there'll be another month of activity in June.
Right, which is where all of the accruals will be made. They have to be made by June 30th, correct?
Well,
So I guess what I'm getting at, let me see if I can explain where I'm coming from. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the May 30th meeting, but I did watch the tape. And one of the auditor's finding was, of a lesser degree, was there was some concern that expenses weren't being booked in the actual accounting period in which the liability was incurred?
okay, what that had to do with was payables. So when the payables were entered into the system, they were entered with incorrect dates. So in other words, let's say when bills were paid for 6/30/17, they should have been, when the entry for payment was done, it should have been booked as June 30th. But what happened is, instead of using June 30th as the payment date, the date that the payment was actually made, which was like in July, was used. And so that's the type of thing they were talking about.
So can you give me an example of the amount that they were talking about and a description of that item?
It was in the, it was in the. So if you look at the report to the Board of Finance on page 6, those are the particular entries. So about $100,000.
Okay. Have we revised the policies and procedures to ensure that this type of accounting entry is done correctly in the future, or how is that handled?
That is more of a, like the employee that's actually doing the accounts payable work is working closer with that individual and doing something to educate them, to really focus and understand on how important it is to use the correct dates. When anything that occurs for the fiscal year that ends June 30th of 18, that when actually going to pay the bills, that the correct dates are used, because there's 2 dates that are involved. It's the fiscal year that it's booked to, which will be 6/30/18, and the actual date of the check, which anything that's going to be an accrual like this is going to be paid subsequent to June 30th. So it's really working closer with the staff member.
Okay. Is this a documented policy, though? Just yes or no? That the invoice date should be used when recording expenses?
Yes, it's, yeah,
It's a
that
data
it,
entry on
yeah, it's more
It's just
data,
a
right?
Okay, okay. No, I just wanted to be sure, because I would imagine that any new employee that comes in reads the manual and understands what the process is. And I would think that performance is based on application of whatever is documented in the policy and the procedure. So,
Other questions?
No.
John, you good? Any more, Camille?
I'm all set until we get to, I guess, later in the agenda with the follow-up.
So I just want to understand one thing you said here, Anna.
Mhm.
We estimated we would use about $350 out of the fund balance.
Mhm.
We're really probably only going to need 50.
Yeah,
So our fund balance will be 300,000 more than we expected, right?
well, 600, because well, 625 actually, because we said we were gonna use 675.
Yeah.
And of that, I'm estimated, the way that the revenue's actually received and the expenditures that we will make, we're gonna need about 50 of it.
Okay. So the fund balance, okay, 625. Mm-hmm. I keep going back to taxpayers. I mean, I guess that door is shut, but these are big chunks of money at the end of the year that I just don't feel like we had a good handle on in terms of the health insurance liability and how much we'd have left in that fund to try to affect the mill rate. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I don't know that there's any recourse.
Not now. Well, you set the mill rate already, and those are shipping out this week or next. And, we're meeting with our health insurance providers, and we're going to report to you folks on a quarterly basis. I think we decided at the last meeting. And we'll
Yep.
have reports from them, and we're just going to keep watching it. We also have, Mr. Newton and I will have a meeting with the town employees, both the board and the town employees, talking about why their health insurance is going up. I think it might be in your packet. If not, it's a presentation that the health insurance folks made to the Board of Ed on Monday, talking about claimants between $25,000 and $125,000 a year. So medium to medium large. Large would be the 125. That's when our umbrella kicks in, right? 5 years ago, we had 40 claimants in town, the entire town, reach the level of $25,000 in claims, up to $125,000. And this year, we're just under 100 claimants. That's a 145% increase. 40 to 100. And that's why our health insurance is just last year. So what we based the budget on, that you all approved and we all stood up here and presented, we had 67 claimants last year. Well, 2 years ago, this current year's, last year, 16, 17, we had 67 claimants reach $25,000 in claims, up to 125. Again, this year, 95.
Well, the cost of health insurance has gone up considerably, so for the same service, it's going
Right.
to cost you more.
Right.
That's part of it.
Right, so people are reaching that threshold much quicker. Absolutely, we talked about that offline. Therefore, it's driving it up. But that's that dramatic increase of 50% in a year, 67 to almost 100. Nobody was prepared for that, including our health insurance coordinators, our advisors. So we're going to get a little bit more conservative in our estimations and also be looking for relief somewhere. But we're not in a place to go shop the insurance market. The
Right.
claims are skyrocketing.
Right,
We're not in
understand.
that place.
Yeah.
You know, unless prescription medication miraculously comes down by a presidential order, that isn't going to happen. So I don't know. I don't know. And every town is struggling with this. Every company is.
Yep.
Every company is out of control.
So I guess the good news is we have more in our fund balance than we expected, which is good news. It would be nice if we knew that sooner, but I guess that's that's the way that goes. Under expenditures on the budget summary, would I expect to see a healthcare payment there, greater than 10,000? A health insurance payment?
One didn't happen in May.
No?
So are you looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yes, I am looking at that. Then I was looking at this
okay.
and saying, to feed that. So if I look at May, I don't really know. I guess this is as of the
So-
shaded,
So in May,
yeah,
from the general fund, on the town side, we did not make a large contribution to the health fund. They've already been made earlier in the year,
okay.
okay?
Okay, so I thought this would be something that we would pay out that was greater than $10,000
But the town has already made its contribution
to the fund. So if
what
it,
we're required to make for the year.
okay,
So that's why, like earlier in the year, when you receive this report, we typically make them $300,000 at a time. So if you go back and look at earlier months, you'll see where the health insurance, the
Mhm.
town's contribution to the health insurance plan were made. They were in previous months.
so on this sheet, I didn't know if you were gonna talk about this as an overview.
I can.
I wanted to just ask you, I think you told me what that bottom row of numbers was, but for the life of me, I can't remember. I don't know if it was the balance in the fund?
No, so
What's the bottom row of numbers that doesn't have a title down here?
So what the bottom row of numbers is, what I do every month is I look at the current month that we're in and whatever the last date of the claims is. So for purposes of this discussion, on June 11th, so as of June 11th, we have 270,000 in claims for the month. In all the prior months, that's what that bottom row is. So for example, in May at this time, we had $290,000 in claims so far as of the 11th of May. That's how I use that. I use it as a gauge so that I can kind of get a feel for what the total claims for the month will be.
Okay, so looking at May, 613 was the actual.
Correct.
But-
But as of May 11th, there were 290,000 in claims.
Oh,
So in other words, like in June, so far we have 270,000. In May, we had 290,000 at the same time. So more than likely, that means
Oh.
we're gonna have a total of 600,000, at least.
so it's a chalk line, sort of, the same day of the month?
Exactly.
Okay.
yeah. It's just to kind of gauge it. Like, I would prefer to have more months like October.
Yeah, of course you would. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of what that is used for.
Do we try to, I don't know how these things work, but do we try to incentivize the insured with wellness programs, or explain the impact of them using insurance to, you know what I'm saying, right?
We have started in collective bargaining agreements if our employees do go through like a wellness, a fitness program. It has to be done through their doctors because blood work is needed for
Mhm.
that. And we get a certificate from the, it comes through Aetna, then we reduce what their premium share is by 1%. But they have to go through and
Yeah.
do, so that's one form of incentive that we do provide.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else have questions? So our actuals for the year will be obviously at the next meeting. We'll know for sure where we came in.
Yes, that's correct. And
Okay.
then it won't be until probably September that I'll know what the incurred but not reported claims are, because every year we have those.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, they've been in the $900,000 range.
Incurred but not reported.
Correct.
So help me out with that. How does that work?
So,
You see a doctor on the 30th of June, and that bill is gonna eventually come in. and
Okay.
Of course, we owe it, but it would have to be booked on to the prior year.
Okay.
Right, is that
Right,
simplified?
right,
Simplified?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Everybody else? Oh, Camille?
While we're on this schedule, Anna, I have two questions.
sure.
The administrative fees that are associated, I guess those are Aetna fees for claims processing. Is that a fixed rate, or is that tied to the amount of, the dollar amount of the claims? How is,
It's a fixed, for each component of the administrative fees, it's a fixed fee on a per employee, per member charge. About 80% of the administrative fees is for the stop-loss insurance.
so that's a premium? That fee is like a premium for the stop-loss insurance
Right.
policy?
Yes.
Included in that 12.4? Okay.
Yes, because it's, the administrative fees for the current year is about $920,000.
So are you saying that the stop-loss policy that we have is with Aetna also, as well as the claims processing?
No. Well, and it would go out into the market and buy a bigger policy, a reinsurance policy. So I don't know who the.
Well, we do, every year when we do the renewal, our consultant does go through a bid process to get us, the best rate that we can get for that.
So our consultant works with Aetna to get the best price on that?
Yes.
One saying yes, one saying no.
I think it's not Aetna, I think they go out and get an RFP to other insurance companies.
Right.
So Brown & Brown would do that, it's not through Aetna, I don't believe. I don't know, maybe she's right. We do go out independently and solicit prices. I don't know if that's through Aetna or if that's through Brown & Brown. There would be a difference.
Our consultant does that for us,
So
which is Brown &
does.
Brown.
Okay.
And then this year, we also did do an RFP for our insurance, and it was determined that,
For the claims processing portion of that?
it was better for us to, it made more sense for us to stay with Aetna rather than to make another change at this point in time.
Based on the level of claim activity that we had.
Yeah, well, we had, Anthem, and they also looked at the state plan as well, and it
Right.
just didn't make sense for us to make a move at this time.
I remember you saying that, but this does get looked at every year. Brown & Brown is the consultant that makes sure we're getting the best rate possible. Okay. My other question with regard to this spreadsheet is, how does that claim dollar amount affect the total liability that the auditors pointed out as of June 30th, 2017?
So, I'm expecting that, at the end of the year, the liability will be, the net position of the fund will be $1.5 million, a negative $1.5 million.
Wow. So I already said that I missed the last meeting.
Right.
And I think part of the solution to this underfunded situation was that you were going to raise premiums for employees in the plan to sort of make up for it.
Well, so the plan renewal at budget time, we were looking at, it was around 17%. And so now the renewal is gonna be a 28%.
Right. In addition to delaying some cash payments and making up for it in the next budget cycle. I think you were explaining to me offline. My question is, the extra $625,000 that we have from the fund balance that will be left over, can we apply that towards that deficit?
So in other words, the fund had negative operating results last fiscal year of $645,000.
Right.
And so this year, the operating results are gonna be negative as well. So it's not gonna work that way. So the only way to make a change there is to go with a higher renewal to cover what our expected shortfalls are in the fund.
I'm not sure I understand that. Did anybody else understand that?
You're gonna raise the premiums to try to
Correct.
fund the,
Right.
to decrease the shortfall. I just didn't know if that was gonna be,
That's the only way to do it? We can't put money into that fund
Well, we're
to
gonna do
reduce-
that through raising the premiums.
But we can't use the excess fund balance that would get returned to the town at the end of the year to help prop that up a little bit and maybe not have a $1.5 million liability on the books?
So,
So what I'm saying is, when I look at this audit report a year from now,
right.
and the results are for June 30th, 2018, which
Mhm.
is 2 weeks from now,
Mhm.
I'm gonna see that $645,000 deficit go to
Mhm.
$1.5 million.
Yes.
You're telling me the only way that we can reduce that shortfall is by raising premiums? Can't we take some of the fund balance?
If
Or,
if
is
that's
that what it's called? The,
Yeah,
the fund balance, the 675. We're only gonna use 50 of that, you're projecting. 625 is left over. Can't we target those funds to reduce that liability? Wouldn't
That-
that be
Well, that is a possibility, and we did discuss that.
at the May 30th meeting?
No, when we were working on a plan to deal with the projected shortfall for this fiscal year, and we were discussing it with our consultants, Brown and Brown, we did talk about going through a special appropriations process to appropriate funds from the town's undesignated fund balance to deal with the shortfalls in the plan. However, that does not equally share the burden with the town and the employees that are a part of the plan. So that's why the option to go with a higher renewal was selected. Because if we appropriated from undesignated fund balance to deal with the issue,
Yeah.
then the employees would not be paying their fair share.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Mm.
I like that answer. So the question I have,
Fair.
yeah, no, I,
It was fair and
Fair to
equity,
everyone.
right?
right. The question I have is the 28% increase, well, not the increase, but the up to 28% increase now, is that, how much of that deficit will be funded by that increase in premium? What are we still gonna be left with?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So we're gonna try to reduce the shortfall in the health insurance liability fund by increasing premiums to 28%.
Yes, okay, I got that.
Okay, and maybe I'm
So
missing
this
it.
time next year,
Yeah,
what's that number?
thanks.
Mm.
Yeah, what will that projected increase result in for next year? Thanks, Mark. Do we have some idea? Because I think it's wise to have some projection, because we might have to have some other contingency plan. Maybe it's talking to Jeff about the Board of Education budget next year and saying, hey, dude, we love you and everything, but you guys are,
So, you know what, in terms of answering that question, is it okay if I work on that and provide you with information at your next meeting?
it is.
Okay,
It's very
Mhm.
okay.
I will do,
Mhm.
I
I
will
think
do
that's
that.
important, though, because it's
Very
kind of like a
important.
trend line, right? We want to see if we're going to hit our target. I reckon, go ahead.
No, right.
Yeah, we
So
don't wanna-
28%, can that get us to zero?
Yeah,
Right. We don't
Can
wanna
that
wait
finally get us to
until
zero?
the 11th month.
and then say, oh,
We don't want to do that
shoot.
again, but if you
No.
look at, I was just noticing, if you look at February, March, those bottom numbers, we saw some good numbers in February and March when the budget rolled out in front of you. So where we popped up in December, at the end of the year, maybe there are a lot of doctor's appointments, we looked at October, February, November, December, not good, but then you get into the February and March and they plummeted down, I mean, from 800, 700,000. So we thought the trend was correcting itself. You know, we actually, we meet with Brown and Brown often, and we're looking at numbers, and so when we reported to you, yeah, we think this 17% health insurance is gonna be the increase. You know, we're working on a 12-month rolling, we're way back here, but we thought we were getting to the right position, and then it blows up again, and then it doesn't trend down, it goes, you know, up. So, projections, and Anna will get you other numbers for next meeting, but yeah, I would love to come in at zero. We don't wanna have to go up again
Right.
28%.
And I know it's an estimate, I get it,
Yeah.
you don't know, there's a lot of variables here, so I don't want to imply that I'm looking for a hard and fast number, but,
I asked the same question,
Mhm.
like, okay, so if we increase the rates to the 28%, what I would expect to happen is to deal with this year's shortfall all of the claims that we're projecting for.
Can you
for
give me
the
another mic?
18 all of the claims that we're projecting for the 18-19 fiscal year, and then in addition to that, start to trend the health of the fund in a positive direction. Taking steps to get us there. And the response to my question was yes. However, I would like to look at it in terms of dollars and cents. So I can say, okay, at 6/30/18, I'm estimating 1.5 million. However, at 6/30/19, that will be reduced to like maybe 300,000. Instead of it being a negative 1.5, it'll be a negative 300,000. Maybe it'll be zero.
When you come back to us next, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you come back to us next month, Anna, can you provide the trend for, say, the past dozen years, where it's been?
The information, it was provided to you for 5 years last